I wasn't even supposed to be at that Coldplay concert. I had tickets. Yeah, sure. Row 12, Section C, dead center at Gillette Stadium. But truth is, I gave them away to my cousin's kid. I had a board meeting in Boston the next morning and figured, why deal with the crowds and traffic? Funny how fate doesn't give a damn about your schedule. Because that night, the night I skipped, my marriage ended on a 70-foot Jumbotron in front of 65,000 people and about 13 million TikTokers. It started with a text. One of those, dude, is this your wife? Messages with a low-res screenshot of what looked like two people on the kiss cam, mid-hug. One of them? Definitely her. Sunglasses in her hair. That Patagonia windbreaker I bought her last Christmas in Vermont. Her smile. That smirk she gets when she thinks she's doing something bold and thrilling. Except this time, she wasn't smiling at me. It was someone else. A guy in a black shirt and stupidly perfect teeth. The kind of tech bro who wears Allbirds to board meetings and thinks drinking mezcal makes him mysterious. I played the video. The camera zooms in. The crowd cheers. She leans in. He leans closer. Her hand brushes his chest like it's second nature. And then, poof, the lights go dark as they both disappear out of frame, ducking down like two teenagers getting caught. And the crowd? They laugh. The lead singer even makes a joke. Looks like they've got a secret. He has no idea how right he is. By the time the video made it to Twitter, sorry X, it had 1 million views. By morning, it was on Barstool, TMZ, and freaking NPR. On Beer. The public radio crowd was discussing my wife's affair like it was a sociological trend. Executive infidelity in the age of algorithmic privacy. I didn't even know what that meant, but I knew one thing. I wasn't the only one who noticed. Because by then, his wife had noticed too. Her name's Melissa. We met once at a corporate retreat back in 2023. She struck me as the type who'd seen more than she said. I got her number through a mutual friend. She picked up fast. You saw it too, huh? She said flat. No surprise. Just exhaustion. Yeah, I said. I did. We met the next morning at Render Coffee on Columbus Avenue South End. She looked like she hadn't slept, and I probably looked worse. I brought a folder, old-fashioned, I know, filled with screenshots, timestamps, credit card charges, and a receipt from the Verb Hotel the night before the concert. Room 212. 2 cocktails on the tap. 1 chicken katsu from Hijoko. Shared, apparently. Melissa brought her own evidence. Password-protected PDFs, email threads, Slack messages she'd pulled from a test environment his company had thought was private. That's when I found out who he was. Nathan Dyer, CEO of a data analytics firm called Orbital. Valuation north of $1 billion. I'd seen the guy in Forbes. Clean cut, navy haircut, the whole trusted leader package. And he'd been sleeping with my wife for at least 6 months. It wasn't the kiss that broke me. It was the familiarity. The way they touched like it was routine. Like they'd done it 100 times. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she looked up at him. She did that with me when we first started dating. Back when she still looked me in the eye. Her name is Sloan. But fits. She always liked names that sounded like they belonged in AJ, crew catalog. Sloan was the chief people officer at Orbital. Basically HR queen of the company her boyfriend ran. She was in charge of integrity trainings, corporate ethics, sexual conduct policy. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all the board of directors. When the video hit, I didn't call her. I didn't text. I changed the locks on our house in Chestnut Hill. Froze the joint accounts. Pulled my name off her Tesla lease. All while she was still holed up at the Intercontinental with Nathan, hiding from a fallout they didn't see coming. But it was coming. Because what they didn't know is, I'd already started the clock on something bigger. You'd think a man in my shoes would lose it, scream, throw furniture, torture closet. But I didn't. Rage is noisy, and I've never been noisy. I've always been surgical. I'm a third-generation forensic accountant. I find things, small numbers, tiny patterns, secrets people think they buried. And the thing about secrets? They always leave a shadow. especially online. The morning after the concert, I called a friend from undergrad, Sarah Lowe. She works cyber compliance at a hedge fund in Manhattan. I didn't give her the details, just told her I needed access to metadata, deleted texts, shared calendars, Slack archives, video, upload logs. Her response? How deep are we digging? And do you want plausible deniability? I said no. I wanted evidence. While she did her thing, I did mine. I had access to Sloane's iCloud from a time. She needed help setting up her new MacBook. She never changed a password, a mix of our wedding date and her first dog's name. Classic narcissist move. Always underestimating the man she thought was boring. In 10 minutes, I had access to everything. Her Notes app, her synced iMessages, her AirDrop history. Hell, even her Apple Maps routes. That's how I found the inn at St. Botolph. She'd visited it 5 times over the past 2 months, always on Tuesdays. GPS showed her parked out front for 3 hours each time. Room 407 was booked under the name Ellis Kane. A burner identity Nathan had used before, confirmed when I checked the hotel's Wi-Fi logs. He logged in with an official corporate email. Idiot. I screenshotted it all. The chats between them full of thinly veiled corporate innuendo. Messages like, don't forget the presentation tonight, winking face, or booked the conference room at 8. All time-stamped, all damning, and all so laughably predictable, I started to wonder if these two geniuses actually thought they were in a Netflix drama. Melissa, Nathan's wife, was even more methodical than me. She'd already hired a private investigator. Former DEA, now does work for divorce lawyers and hedge fund prenups. Guy's name was Clay. Had the kind of eyes that looked like they'd seen stuff in Colombia he wasn't allowed to talk about. Clay gave us the whole story. Nathan and Sloane had been using a WeWork on Congress Street as their unofficial rendezvous point. They'd registered under fake LLCs, Lyra Media, and Finch Advisory. But the payments? All traceable, all tied to the same Amex Platinum. The one Sloane had been using for our Amazon Prime, our dinner at Olena, the swing set we bought for my niece. Every time she was cheating on me, she was earning as cashback rewards. I sat in my study, staring at the screen, not sure whether to laugh or puke. There's something so cruel about finding betrayal in your own code, like someone carving initials into your bones while you're asleep. That night, I forwarded the first batch of data to a secure drive. Then I did something small, something quiet, something for me. I went to her closet, found that silk blouse she always wore to board meetings, navy blue, slight lavender sheen. The one she wore the day she got promoted. I folded it neatly, placed it in a gift box, and mailed it to her office. No note, just a sticky tab inside that said, "You'll need this for the HR hearing." By the time she opened it, her email had been flagged by corporate compliance. Her Slack history had been exported, and a subcommittee of her Bishal's board had already scheduled a 10 a.m. review of potential executive misconduct. Turns out, when your job is protecting company culture, sleeping with your boss on a WeWork desk doesn't go over well. And this was just the warm-up, because Melissa had her own ideas. Bigger ones, public ones. She didn't just want them fired. She wanted them both to become cautionary tales. Some people grieve. Some people plot. Melissa? She decorates her rage with precision. It was 3 days after the Coldplay video went viral when she invited me over. Her place was just off Beacon Street in Brookline, one of those old New England homes with bay windows and iron railings that whisper legacy. Inside, it was all white oak, matte black fixtures, and curated minimalism. Everything in its place. Everything deliberate. Just like her. She didn't offer condolences or make small talk. Instead, she slid a heavy folder across her marble counter and said, "They screwed with the wrong people." Inside, photos, timelines, emails. A map of every hotel rendezvous. Surveillance stills from the Newberry, the Elliott, the Langham. Expense reports with both their names. One of them charging a suite under the company budget line, Q2 talent strategy. Classy. She'd hired a digital forensics firm out of Cambridge. Extia contractors. One of them, a guy named Mitch, intercepted texts Nathan had tried to delete. One thread was chilling in its smugness. Imagine if someone saw us on camera tonight. They'd just assume we're networking or prepping culture alignment. Melissa leaned on the island, her fingers steepled. They think we're background noise in their origin story. The betrayed spouses. The cliché. I nodded. We're not. Oh no, she said, with a twist in the third act. That day the plan came together. Not rage-fueled. Not messy. Surgical. She'd already filed a whistleblower complaint through an anonymous proxy. Orbishal's internal counsel had no idea that the tip about executive misconduct in HR came from Nathan's own wife. Meanwhile, I moved fast. I met with our estate attorney, revised our trust language, and froze all shared investment vehicles. Sloane's credit card declined at a dry bar in Seaport the same day. Small inconvenience, big message. And then came the leak. Melissa didn't send it to just the board. She sent it to 3 very specific inboxes. 1. Boston Globe Business Desk. 2. Women in Tech Alliance, New England Chapter. 3. Harvard Business School Alumni HR Ethics Committee. No caption, just the video, the Slack logs, the photos from the hotel hallway, time-stamped, and a subject line that simply read, "When people leaders break people." It took hours, not days, before the email started flying. Orbishal called an emergency board session. Nathan was placed on leave. Sloane was told not to come in pending review. Her LinkedIn quietly changed to currently recharging. Ironic phrasing, considering how many batteries she drained sneaking around town. But that was just step 1. Melissa had something else. Something that made me stop cold. She opened her phone and showed me a voice memo. I listened, and what I heard was him, Nathan, talking on speaker in a car. A casual phone call recorded accidentally via the car's Bluetooth. Melissa's son had been in the back seat. iPad rolling. If this blows up, I'll just spin it. Say it's love. Say the board's retaliating against an office relationship. HR will fold. They always fold. You think Sloane will be okay? Laughter. She'll land somewhere. She always does. My stomach turned. These weren't just cheaters. They were strategists. Arrogant ones. But they hadn't accounted for something. We knew the same game. We'd just been playing it longer, quieter. Melissa closed the memo and locked her phone. He thinks he's already writing the narrative. I looked at her. So we'd take the pen back. You never really know how fast a corporate ecosystem can collapse until the air starts thinning. It began with a single phrase in the Boston Herald. Allegations of inappropriate executive conduct at Orbishal Incorporated under investigation. 12 words. No names. No photos. But those of us in the blast radius, we felt the tremor. Melissa's leak had done exactly what it needed to, whispered doubt into all the right ears. The board, the investors, the media, and just like that, the cracks started to show. Nathan was yanked from all internal comms. His Slack status went gray. Sloane's calendar disappeared overnight. HR sent out a vaguely worded leadership realignment memo that made no mention of the Coldplay incident, but every employee knew. You could hear it in the silence. You could feel it in the way Orbishal's stock dipped too. 7% in one day. Not catastrophic, but symbolic. At home, Sloane still hadn't come back. She was staying at a friend's condo in the North End, probably one of Nathan's burner properties. She texted me once. I think we should talk. Privately. Please. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer. Meanwhile, the public was doing its own digging. A Reddit thread in our /Boston identified both of them by the 4K stadium footage. Another thread linked Sloane's digital trail to a small adult content platform registered under an LLC in Vermont. I clicked through it once, not for curiosity, but confirmation. Same watch on her wrist, same scar on her shoulder, same bedsheets from our old guest room. Turns out the affair had layers. Nathan wasn't just her lover. He was her co-producer. Back at Herbishal, the PR team was drowning. An internal leak confirmed that two major clients, one of them a government contractor, had paused their data ops deployment due to ethical concerns with executive leadership. And that was before the Today Show segment aired. Yeah, you read that right. Tuesday morning, 8:12 a.m. Savannah Guthrie, NBC. A full 4-minute breakdown titled, "When Business Gets Too Personal, The Consequences of Office Affairs in Tech Leadership." B-roll footage included the kiss cam video, slowed down, zoomed in, with a pop track awkwardly playing underneath it like it was some kind of rom-com trailer. Except this was no comedy. By midweek, both Nathan and Sloan were officially separated from their positions. Not fired, not terminated, separated. A phrase so neutered it sounded like a divorce for robots. But what they didn't know was, we weren't done. Because Melissa had one more play, something she'd been waiting to time just right. On Thursday afternoon, she went live. Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, simultaneously. A post titled, "To the Women Who've Been Betrayed in Silence." She didn't name names. She didn't need to. She talked about dignity, about visibility, about the hypocrisy of men who preach values and break them behind closed doors. She ended it with a screenshot of a calendar entry. Executive Integrity Summit, 11 a.m. Nathan D. plus Sloan C. Presenter, Trust and Culture in Growth-Oriented Teams. Captioned, "Ironic, huh?" It hit like wildfire. The post racked up 500K likes in 12 hours. Dozens of women began commenting with their own stories. Not about Nathan or Sloan, but about power, about imbalance, about how betrayal doesn't always scream. Sometimes it smiles and says it's just working late. And in the comments, people started asking questions. Investors, competitors, journalists. The term Coldplay Gate was trending by Friday. And I just sat back in my chair, poured a whiskey, watched the company my wife had helped build start to unravel from the inside out. She thought I'd fall apart. She thought I'd come begging for closure. But all I wanted was silence. And she was finally giving me that. I'll say this for Sloan. She picked the wrong husband if she thought I'd walk away with just a suitcase and therapy bills. By the following Monday, her attorney, some glossy hair guy from a firm on State Street, finally reached out. He asked, politely, if I'd consider negotiating an amicable separation. His tone was smooth, confident, almost smug. So I called my own lawyer, a woman named Dana Rao. Mid-40s, ex-DOJ fraud division, now running a boutique firm out of Cambridge that specializes in high-conflict asset tracing. Dana didn't do hand-holding. She did damage. We met at Bar Mazzana in the South End. While the brunch crowd picked over avocado toast and espresso martinis, Dana slid a binder across the table like it was a menu. Inside were records. Bank transfers from Sloan's Shell LLC to an account in Nassau. A second apartment lease in Waltham under a fake consulting business. 2 Ethereum wallets used to accept anonymous donations tied to a platform I won't name here, but you know it. Everyone does. I've been following the money, Dana said between bites of grilled octopus. Turns out your wife's been moonlighting as something of a digital entrepreneur. And Nathan, I asked. Worse, she said. He signed 3 NDAs this year, all related to interpersonal behavior. One of them came with a 6-figure settlement. So this wasn't their first tango, just the first one with stadium lighting. I told Dana I didn't want revenge. Not in the petty sense. No drama. No slash tires or billboards or weird viral stunts. I wanted the legal equivalent of exile. I wanted her reputation untouchable by HR departments, by equity firms, by anyone who Googled her name and saw the words culture expert. We had leverage. Lots of it. Because before she joined Herbishal, Sloan and I had signed a postnup. Nothing fancy. Just a rebalancing after I inherited my grandfather's property portfolio in Maine. But the clause that mattered most was the trust trigger. Any extramarital relationship that includes deception or fiscal entanglement nullifies the beneficiary's rights to shared liquid assets. Translation: if she cheated and spent money doing it, she forfeited access to the trust. Sloan had been charging Airbnbs, dinners, and consulting retreats to our shared card. I had the receipts. Literally. When her attorney got the notification of asset freeze, he called me twice in an hour. I didn't answer. Instead, I uploaded every record to a private Dropbox folder. Titled it Transparency for Sloan. Sent the link. Watched the email go from delivered, opened, forwarded. By the next morning, she tried calling me. I let it ring. Then I blocked her number. Actions have consequences. And Sloan? She'd spent a lifetime dodging them. Polished, poised, fluent in corporate deflection. But this time the mirror was too clear. Meanwhile, Melissa was making her own moves. She reopened a dormant lawsuit, one she'd quietly filed 2 years ago, then shelved. It involved Herbishal's previous HR director, a woman who'd resigned abruptly, citing internal pressure and unprofessional executive boundaries. Now that woman had a name to go with the pressure, and a lawyer. And suddenly, Sloan wasn't just part of an affair. She was part of a pattern. The company, already bleeding contracts, tried to run PR triage. They hired an outside audit firm, released a statement that included the words accountability, rebuild, and moving forward. But no matter how you scrub the blood, everyone still sees the outline on the carpet. Sloan tried to go quiet. Shut down her socials, switched to private mode, even deleted her bio from a women in leadership panel set for August. But it was too late. She wasn't Sloan, CPO of a unicorn startup anymore. She was the woman on the kiss cam. And I was no longer the man who watched it happen. Nathan Dyer was always a man obsessed with perception. Every press photo, tailored blazer, no tie, cufflinks just visible. Every quote, polished, practiced, soundbite ready. Every keynote, a tightrope walk between charm and disruption. But behind the polish, Melissa knew something darker lived, and she'd spent years filing it away like pieces of a cold case. Now, she was ready to burn the whole file open. It started with a single forgotten thread. A Medium article from 2021 written by a former Herbishal contractor. Vague, frustrated, mostly about broken workflows. But one line stood out. No accountability in leadership. HR protects the brand, not the people. Melissa tracked down the author, a UX researcher named Priya. She now worked in Chicago. Melissa messaged her on Signal, told her who she was, told her everything. Priya didn't hesitate. She wasn't the only one. There was also Ellie, a data analyst who left suddenly in 2022 after internal friction, and Milo, a junior engineer who quit just 2 weeks after his first all-hand with Nathan, citing a toxic leadership culture. The stories weren't dramatic. Not lawsuits. Not headlines. Just dozens of cuts. Each one telling the same story. Nathan took. He manipulated. And when challenged, he'd gaslight and isolate. Always smiling, always armed with a PR-approved excuse. Melissa compiled the testimonies like a prosecutor preparing for trial. No teatrics. Just names, emails, dates. Then she sent the file to someone who'd been waiting for it. Tech Ethics Watch, a nonprofit newsroom focused on Silicon Valley misconduct. Quiet, methodical, brutal in their accuracy. Their piece dropped on a Thursday. Title: The Kiss Cam Wasn't a Problem. Inside a culture of quiet exploitation at Herbishal Incorporated. Within hours, the story spread. Not because it was salacious, but because it was familiar. Dozens of tech workers, men and women alike, started sharing it, quote tweeting it, adding their own, "yeah, this tracks" anecdotes. Nathan wasn't a villain in the classic sense. He was something worse. A smiling opportunist wrapped in branded buzzwords. A man who claimed to build inclusive culture while quietly curating power. Investors took notice. A venture partner from Latitude Capital, Herbishal's lead backer, issued a rare public statement. We are reevaluating our exposure and reviewing leadership oversight. Integrity is not optional. The board froze Nathan's remaining equity package. The internal Slack channels exploded. Orbishal's legal team began quiet separations, with staff tied to the cover-ups, Sloane's former assistant among them. And then someone leaked the internal emails. Not just the affairs, but Nathan's campaign against employees who'd spoken out. The ones quietly pushed out, never replaced. It was a pattern, and now it was public. Through all this, Melissa never flinched. She didn't posture. She didn't gloat. She just watched it all unravel, calmly, deliberately, from the patio of a coffee shop in Cambridge, her laptop open, her fingers tapping out her next move. Meanwhile, I was doing my own cleanup, a quiet rebranding of my firm, a new contract with a Chicago-based fund who read about the case and wanted someone who doesn't blink when ethics matter. I blinked less than ever now. Nathan? He went dark. No statements. No debates. Just a quiet edit on LinkedIn, stepping away to recharge and reflect. But we both knew what that really meant. He'd finally run out of spin. The legal conference room was cold, not in temperature, but in tone. One of those glass box setups on the 18th floor of a financial district tower, overlooking Boston Harbor. Everything sleek, silent, clinical. The kind of place where decisions get made in whispers, but consequences echo for years. Sloane sat across the table. First time I'd seen her in person since the kiss cam. She wore that navy pantsuit I bought her for the 2024 Dev Lead Summit in Seattle. Hair up, no humidity, no warmth. Her face looked like it had been rehearsed in the mirror. Neutral, apologetic, composed. The performance of a woman who still believed this could be negotiated away. To her right was her new attorney, a mergers and acquisitions guy with the smirk of someone who spent more time on yachts than in courtrooms. Across from them, Dana sat cool and unreadable, sifting through our documentation like it was laundry. I watched Sloane pretend not to notice every time Dana turned a page. This isn't about revenge, I said calmly. It's about accountability. Sloane glanced at her lawyer. He spoke first. We'd like to propose a clean separation. No contest. She relinquishes rights to the trust in exchange for full discretion moving forward. No media engagement. Mutualidad. Dana smiled. Just slightly. That's generous, considering you burned the bridge, then try to sell tickets to the wreckage. I slid a folder across the table. Inside, not finances, not emails, just a single printed photo. It was from a party in Martha's Vineyard. 2 years ago. She was in it, mid-laugh, glass of wine in hand. And so was Nathan. Close. Too close. A moment she swore, back then, meant nothing. This started long before the concert, I said. And you know it. Sloane's jaw tightened. For a flicker, I saw the guilt. But then, back to neutral. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Our client is prepared to walk away from all marital claims. Dana raised a brow. That includes the consulting equity in Emberbridge. Silence. That was the crack. See, Emberbridge was a data compliance startup. Sloane had advised them for 6 months. On paper, her compensation was mentorship hours. But she never disclosed the equity gift, 2%, issued right before Bishel signed a cross-integration pilot. Conflict of interest, SEC violation, if you really wanted to push it. Dana knew. I knew. Sloane knew we knew. Let's include that in the clean exit, Dana said. Or we call in federal oversight. 30 seconds of silence passed like fog settling. Then, her lawyer nodded. Slowly. It was done. Outside, I stepped into the wind. Crisp. Sharp. The kind of air that tells you something toxic's been cut loose. But the fight wasn't over yet. Because Melissa called that night. You're not going to believe this, she said. Then she sent me an email chain, forwarded anonymously from an Orbishal's staffer. It was dated 7 months before the kiss cam. Subject line, confidential, Brand Rehabilitation Strategy Draft. The strategy? If Nathan's upcoming IPO failed or the board turned against him, he and Sloan would manufacture a humanizing story. A workplace romance, a forbidden love, framed carefully, managed softly, branded not as scandal, but as courage. They planned it, all of it, even the kiss, even a fall. Melissa's voice came through the phone again. They weren't careless. They were calculated. And just like that, it wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was manipulation as marketing. It was only a matter of time before they tried to reclaim the story. They always do. People like Nathan and Sloan. They're not wired to lose, not quietly. They'll burn the house down and call it a rebrand. It started with a leak. A full Google Doc, 14 pages, slipped anonymously to a journalist at TechFrame, then forwarded to Melissa. Subject line: Draft, Human Narrative Positioning, Dire, Confidential, for internal use only. It read like a playbook written by PR ghosts. Soft focus phrases like unexpected connection in a high-pressure environment, shared values born from mutual mission, leadership humanized by vulnerability. They weren't denying the affair. They were romanticizing it. Page 7 was the worst. Reframing the Coldplay kiss cam moment, leaning into the universality of love, spontaneity, and breaking through rigid corporate expectations. Proposed campaign: Love happens here. Target: tech professionals aged 30 to 45. Launch via Medium Post, branded podcast, and partnered piece with Fast Company. Melissa called me at 2 when she saw that line. They were going to monetize the affair. I didn't answer at first. Just stared at the screen, rereading a sentence from page 9. Potential backlash will fade in 2 news cycles. If we move quickly, we can convert shame into sympathy and turn their exit into brand equity. It was insulting. It was psychotic. And it was pure Silicon Valley. We agreed to leak the doc ourselves, but in the right way. Not some rage post on Twitter. Not some scandal blog. We sent it to Kara Weiss, a journalist for Slate who had spent the last decade tearing down fake narratives in tech. Her headline the next day: Beneath the Kiss, How 2 Executives Tried to Repackage Infidelity as Innovation. She didn't just publish the draft. She annotated it. Every line of spin was followed by footnotes, links, screenshots, source quotes from current and former Orbital employees. It wasn't a hit piece. It was a surgical exposure. The story exploded. Morning Joe, Bloomberg Tech, even The Atlantic covered it. It wasn't just about a scandal anymore. It was about a system that rewards audacity over accountability and how 2 people thought they could script their way out of the fallout. That week, every podcast Nathan had ever appeared on either pulled the episodes or added disclaimers. Sloan's guest talk at South by Southwest Women in Culture was canceled. And Love Happens Here. It became a meme. People started posting the kiss cam clip over it, but dubbed with horror music, not romance. They couldn't control the story anymore. Because truth, when timed right, beats even the best PR firm. Nathan issued a final statement. Of course he did. Some long, bloated LinkedIn post about growth, mistakes, and learning to love in the margins of fear. It had 11,000 likes, but 30,000 comments, most of them laughing. Sloan didn't post anything. She ghosted out of the narrative, the same way she used to ghost our dinners, our anniversary plans, our marriage. Melissa and I met the night the story dropped, sat outside at the Liberty Hotel patio bar, sipping dark rum. Hers neat, mine over ice. We watched people walking by. Tourists, locals, strangers with no idea that they were passing 2 people who used to be invisible in someone else's fairy tale. I think we finally took the script back, she said, raising her glass. Yeah, I said, tapping mine to hers. Now we just rewrite the ending. You expect a bang. You expect screaming, headlines, some explosive third act where everything collapses at once. But the truth is, after the destruction comes silence. A different kind of heaviness. Not the sound of betrayal. The sound of breath returning to a space where the noise used to live. The world moved on, of course. It always does. Hashtag Coldplay Gate trended for 2 weeks, then got buried under some celebrity breakup and a leaked trailer for a Marvel reboot. People stopped asking about Nathan and Sloane. Stopped reposting memes. Stopped watching the video. But for us, the ones who lived it, the aftermath didn't come with closure. It came with paperwork. Melissa finalized her divorce in early September. Clean, brutal, precise. She kept the house, the liquidity, and, more importantly, the narrative. Nathan tried to negotiate the optics. Claimed he wanted healing. She gave him a court order instead. I signed my papers a week later. No press. No spectacle. Just ink and silence and the slow, strange feeling of unbinding from someone I thought I'd die beside. The house in Chestnut Hill sold within 11 days. I didn't walk through it a final time. Didn't want to know what echoes lived in the walls. I moved to a condo in the Leather District. Small, efficient, quiet. The kind of place with tall windows and exposed brick and no room for ghosts. Some nights I worked late. Other nights I just sat with a drink and let the stillness in. Melissa and I kept in touch. Not romantically, at least not yet. We were two people who knew too much, who lost too much, who weren't ready to call what remained love, but who'd earned the right to sit in the same silence and call it peace. Then, in mid-October, I got an email. No subject, no name, just a short message. Thought you should know, she's in Bali. Signed on as corporate consciousness consultant at some expat crypto wellness thing. Attached was a screenshot. Sloane, on a beach, in linen pants, holding a microphone, standing next to a banner that said, "Elevate your frequency. Ethics in Web3 culture." I laughed. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even surprised. She'd always land somewhere. She always knew how to reframe herself, like a chameleon covered in buzzwords. But what struck me most was her face. In that photo, she wasn't smiling. Not really. There was something empty behind her eyes. Something weightless. Like she'd finally run out of roles to play and was just mouthing the words out of muscle memory. Melissa sent a single text when I forwarded it to her. You can change countries. You can't outrun yourself. And I guess that's the thing. You can lose a marriage. You can lose a company. You can even lose a public persona. But you can't lose who you really are. Not forever. The wreckage doesn't vanish. It just grows quiet. It waits for you in the mirror when no one's watching. And Sloane? She was finally alone with hers. I used to think closure came with answers. That if you just asked the right questions, followed the threads, found the truth, something inside you would stitch itself back together. It doesn't. Closure doesn't come in courtroom verdicts or leaked emails or even revenge perfectly executed. It comes in waves. Quiet. Uneven. It comes the first time you hear her name and feel nothing. It comes when you stop checking to see if the scandal is still trending. It came for me one night in December, walking home from South Station. Cold air, lights reflected in the Charles, a guitar player covering the scientist near the harbor walk. And I stood there, coat open, breath thick, and didn't think about them at all. I just listened to the song, not for its irony, just for the melody. Nathan faded, eventually. Tried launching a new venture in Lisbon, a hybrid productivity coaching platform for remote teams. The site never made it out of beta. He resurfaced once on a podcast talking about failure as evolution, but the host never aired the episode. The audience had moved on. Sloane stayed in Bali, pushed breathwork retreats and thought leadership meditations, branded herself as an organizational empath. But her past kept leaking through. Every time a new client Googled her, every time someone whispered, "Wasn't she that woman on the—" Yeah, that one. Melissa published a book. Not about them, not exactly. About the culture that makes people like them rise, while good people get quietly replaced. She called it Grace in the Wreckage. It hit the New York Times nonfiction list at number 9. She didn't thank him in the acknowledgments. We still talk, still laugh sometimes, still sit in coffee shops, and look at people like we've lived 5 lives between two of us. We're not together, not officially, but there's something about surviving fire with someone else that doesn't burn clean. It bonds, quietly, permanently. And me? I went back to the thing I've always done, finding patterns in silence. Only now I'm slower, more careful, more aware of how quickly the floor can disappear when you think you're standing on loyalty. People sometimes ask if I'd take it back, if I'd undo it all. The answer is no, because for the first time in years, my life feels honest. Not shiny, not optimized, but mine. Not shared with someone who wore my name like an accessory. Not entangled in a brand built on lies. Just mine. And the thing about truth, it doesn't need an audience. It just needs a voice.